Welcome back, everybody, to another Sabaton reaction video, and today we're going to be taking on one that a number of you have suggested to me, and that is The Final Solution. Now, I haven't watched the video, but I fully understand what this is going to be about based on the title. The Final Solution was the very kind of cold and sterile description that was used by Nazi leadership to describe their answer to the Jewish question, as they put it, which was to what were they going to do with all of the Jews in the conquered territories. And there was actually a meeting that was held involving a number of Nazi leaders, both political and military, including Reinhard Heydrich, who was the guy who's kind of the architect, as they say, of the final solution. He was killed later in the war, I think, in Czechoslovakia. But there's a really, really good movie with a number of big name actors in it, including Kenneth Branagh, who plays Heydrich, and I think it's called Conspiracy, and it shows this meeting, and it's just amazing to watch these people basically deliberate the fate of millions of people and what they're going to do with them. And their final solution, of course, was to come up with mass extermination in the form of gas chambers in places like Auschwitz-Birkenau. For me personally, this is one of those things that I'm sure is going to be very difficult to watch, and I'll be interested to see how Sabaton handles this. I've known a few Holocaust survivors, including a man that my mother dated. His father was a child when he survived Sobibor. And his grandfather was actually killed in the escape attempt from Sobibor. And of course, I work for an organization called Rachel's Challenge, where we share the story of a girl named Rachel Joy Scott who was killed at Columbine. I work for her family, and her family actually got to know Miep Gies, who was the woman who hid the Anne Frank family, Anne Frank and her family, in the attic of their office building in Holland. And we share Anne Frank's story, and I know what a tragic story that is, but what an amazing legacy that young woman left behind in the form of her diary. So I probably won't say a whole lot as I react to this, but I'm interested to see how it goes. And remember, too, it wasn't just Jews that were killed in the Holocaust. There were millions of other people as well. Disabled, homosexual, gypsies, Russians.
Country in depression, nation in despair. One man seeking reasons everywhere. Growing hate and anger, the furious orders were precise. Who was to be blamed and pay the price?
Yep.
Wicked propaganda, turning neighbors into foes. Soldiers of the Third Reich searching homes. And then their former friends are watching as they are round up one by one. Times of persecutions just begun. Ever since it started on this
Kristallnacht, yeah.
When liberty died and truth was denied. Sent away on trains, sent on a one-way trip to hell. Enter the gates, Auschwitz awaits. Where freedom burns, the final solution. Dreams fade away and all hope turns to dust. When millions learn the curtain has fallen, lost to the world as they perish in flames.
I hope to visit Auschwitz one day. I don't know if I ever will, but if I ever have the money and the ability to do so, I would like to go there. One story I want to share from my own life. My great uncle Harold was in Patton's Army, the Third Army. He was in the 11th Armored Division, and the 11th Armored Division actually liberated the Mauthausen concentration camp. And I remember him telling me that you could smell the bodies burning 20 miles away, and just what a horrible sensation that was, knowing that they were getting close to something. And they had heard some things, but they weren't fully aware of the extent of what was happening. Well, he took a lot of pictures at Mauthausen. He came home. His only daughter was born in 1951. And when she was a young girl, actually, my cousin Kay, she was the one who told me this story. She is his daughter. She said that she went downstairs as a young girl and found his photos from Mauthausen, was going through them, and her dad came down. And he was horrified to see his daughter seeing these pictures, and so he sent her away. And later on, she came back downstairs and she saw him throwing the photos into their wood burning stove in their basement. He was so horrified that his daughter could be exposed to what he saw, and he never forgot about it. And honestly, he never talked about it. I was in my late 20s when he passed away, and he was willing to talk about the Battle of the Bulge. He talked about a lot of things to do with the war, but he wouldn't talk about that. It left that much of a scar on him. So I can only imagine what it must have been like for the families who were directly involved in this. See, it wasn't something that happened right away. They didn't just go right to exterminating them. They took away their rights. They took away citizenship. They started actually like doing genealogy and figuring out who was considered a Jew.
Solution, dreams fade away and all hope turns to dust. When millions burn, the curtain has fallen, lost to the world as they perish in flames. When freedom burns, the final solution, dreams fade away and all hope turns to dust. When millions burn, the curtain has fallen, lost to the world as they perish in flames.
So yeah, like I said, I'd highly recommend watching the movie Conspiracy with Kenneth Branagh. It really kind of shows you the history behind how they came to so callously make this decision. And I'd also highly recommend, once COVID goes away and we're back to normal, if you ever get the chance, at least here in the United States, there's a Holocaust museum in Washington, D.C., and it's a powerful experience. One of the things I learned that I didn't really know a lot about was just, as a professional genealogist myself, just how much they got into the genealogy of individual persons, so they could determine, okay, well, if you had this much Jewish blood, you're considered a Jew, and if you don't, then you're not considered a Jew. They were so meticulous in determining for each individual person whether or not they were considered a Jew by the state in terms of how they dealt with this. And initially, it started with removing people's rights, and then they talked about sterilization so they couldn't reproduce, and then eventually it just got to mass extermination. And it's horrible to think that in a modern society that was possible. But it is, and it still is. And I think a lot of those same kinds of things, maybe not to the level, are still going on in places like Africa. There's a lot of that sort of thing, of ethnic cleansing going on in places like Africa that we don't really hear about. And I think we should probably learn more about it and speak up and stand up for people who can't stand up for themselves. So I hope you enjoyed this. I would love to hear your own personal thoughts about this song, about this topic. Let's continue that conversation. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again soon.